So let's say you're running a clinical trial, and is there any need for intervention? So is there any emergency or immediate intervention needed? What happens when the answer is yes, and what happens when the answer is no? When the answer is yes, you have to follow the site's protocol for emergencies. So every single clinical trial has put up a protocol for emergencies to anticipate unforeseeable events that they can anticipate in the future, and therefore there's a written protocol in place to implement it if and should such situations arise. Follow the protocol and inform the clinician, record the side effect or the adverse event that may have happened. If there is no immediate intervention needed, so if it's not an emergency, they should still record the side effect or the adverse event, and they should follow the protocol for toxicity management. From the study clinician or physician's perspective, once a study subject reports a side effect or an adverse event, it is their job to notify the clinical trial sponsor of the study, the side effect or the adverse event in question. They have to document and they have to follow the adverse event until the patient has stabilized. The study investigator at any given point plays two different roles. So there is a clinical role and there is a research role. In the clinical role, it is the job or the responsibility of the clinical investigator to make sure that the study participant is okay at all times. Any side effects or adverse events have been appropriately addressed, managed, and resolved. They have to provide management commensurate with appropriate clinical guidance or clinical judgment, and they have to provide referral to either secondary or tertiary care. The study investigator clinician may not be the subject's or the participant's primary physician or the primary clinician. From a research perspective, they have to identify the adverse event appropriately to make sure whether it's an ADR or not. They need to follow all the study protocols to record the event. They need to make sure that the trial sponsor and the IRB committee, the DSMB, everybody is aware of the event in concern of question. They have to make sure that the study participants have stabilized and have to make a judgment call on whether there are enough adverse events to warrant stopping the study, pausing the study, or doing a crossover trial. Therapeutic misconception is when patients think that they're receiving a medication to treat their disease. So again, in this case, the informed consent may not have been appropriate. It is very important to make sure that the study participants understand that they may be randomized to a placebo. So they may not be receiving the treatment at all. And for informed consent, it is important that they understand and they agree to this particular aspect of the clinical trial. Physicians sometimes think that they can provide medications or treatments per their usual practice. So it's important to make sure that the physicians who are part of the study understand what the protocols are for toxicity management, what the protocols are for the clinical trial itself, how to report adverse events, all of that. The study team, their role is primarily to make sure that the study protocols are being adhered to and respond according to protocol. So if there is any adverse event, they have to respond appropriately in that situation and notify the study investigator. They have to monitor safety across all of the study sites. They have to review safety data and present it to the principal investigators. It is important for the clinical investigators to get together with the study teams every once in a while to make sure that they're updated on all the information, make sure that the study team understands the protocols. If there's a change in protocol, that needs to be communicated appropriately. And if they have any questions, those need to be answered. So it's important to every once in a while, get together with them, make sure everybody's on the same page. There may be expedited reporting to the sponsor depending upon if there's a lot of adverse events or side effects popping up in the clinical trial, then it may become important to report interim results to the sponsor.